Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. This is Take It to the Hizzy, Fantasy Football, TITTH number 167. I'm your host, Justin Bruni, but there he is. We got Stephen Hammond with us this morning. Happy Sunday, sir. How are we doing?
How's it going? How are you?
Hey, pretty good. Just chilling. We had some preseason yesterday. Watched the Bears get their faces smacked in. That was great. But, had some other games. Football's back. So, some were exciting, some not so much. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, just trying to watch these last preseason games, get a feel for who some of these sleepers are, get to see those first looks at some of the rookies. Jamar Chase had a kind of disappointing game, and I believe that was Friday, but hopefully he bounces back. Devontae, got to see him in action a bit. So gearing up for the season.
Yeah, we're not too far away. I think pretty close to 3 weeks. I was going to say it was like 23, 22 some odd days. I'm not sure. But yeah, getting really excited, getting the itch for some betting. We were talking about that before we got started here. Preseason betting is just not quite up to snuff, we'll say. Pretty much betting on the under or just, taking a stab in the dark on whose third or fourth strings are going to come into play at the end of the game and really close it down for you. So, but today we're going to be talking mock drafts. So today's mock draft is 12 teams, PPR, redraft, very deep format, 3 flex spots and 11 bench. We're just going to jump right into it here because we have a lot to cover. Starting off in the first round, first pick overall, looking at CMC in a lot of formats here, but in Superflex, do you look the other direction, Steve? Do you prioritize quarterback at all? In this mock, we only had a couple go in the first round. I think 3: Mahomes, Allen, Kyler. You still like CMC number 1 overall?
Yeah, I still like CMC number 1 overall there just because of I think in that system that they have, he's going to get a lot of touches, whether it be through the passing game or running it. So he's still – I mean, last time he was healthy, we were seeing him just put in 35 points a week, it seemed like. So it's tough to veer off someone like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's a guy that potentially still can get, 28 to 30 plus touches a game. So I think that appeal, keeps him in that space, at least in that top 3 space. I don't hate the idea of going after quarterback, but with how deep this year's drafts or these fantasy drafts are, I don't see it as a necessity. I like getting Mahomes kind of in the middle of the first round. I don't like to prioritize him in the top 3. I do kind of exclusively hold that off for, CMC, Kamara, or Cook. Could you see yourself, I should say, drafting any of those guys ahead of him, like Kamara, Cook, or Derrick Henry, Saquon ahead of CMC at 1?
I'm actually huge on Alvin Kamara this year. I just think right with how limited they're going to be in their offense of, they don't have many wide receivers. I think that Alvin Kamara is just going to have an insane workload. And if you stack the box against him, he's also very, very good at receiving out of the backfield. So I don't think he's one of those guys that you can just stack the box, whereas like Derrick Henry, you can kind of stack the box and he might be done. But so I actually have Alvin Kamara as my RB2 this year.
Yeah, I have him at RB2 as well. And I actually have quite a few shares of him already in like my Scott Fishbowl draft, a couple of dynasty drafts. So right now, because of the amount of shares I have, I probably still weigh more towards CMC, who I don't have any shares of yet. I like to get myself a piece. He's an exciting player to watch. When you're watching 8 to 10 fantasy teams, it doesn't hurt having, perceivably one of the best players in the league on your roster.
Definitely.
What about some of these other quarterbacks here? We're looking at Mahomes, Allen, Kyler going in the first round. What do you think about maybe Aaron Rodgers, Dak, Lamar getting popped into that first round?
I think the only one I could really make a case for, and I still don't necessarily love it, I like him more in that round 2 area. But Aaron Rodgers, I think he was MVP last year. He gets back with Devontae. Maybe this is their last season together. We don't really know how that's going to really shake out. We know he's back this year. So he's maybe the one where I could see sneaking him into the first, but I really like him in that second round a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with the with him coming back, it definitely increases his value. I was able to get him at like rounds 4 and 5 in some super flex leagues earlier this summer when people were a little bit more concerned, but I still think first round is a bit of a reach still. So I would probably hold him back still for the second round, maybe even the third round if you can. He wasn't really that far off from the third round, just 3 picks away. I think Lamar Jackson is probably the only one that I would move up, but I don't think it's a necessity. If you're in your redraft, lobby or whatever, and you're seeing quarterbacks really go off the shelf quick, like if they go, 4 out of the first 5 picks, I think you definitely want to look at drafting a quarterback in the first round. I've been in a few of those drafts, but again, most of my drafts so far have been dynasty, so obviously the quarterback position has a little bit more premium value in dynasty because quarterback just lasts longer. They just last longer than running backs. Their shelf life is significantly prolonged in comparison. But if you see that big run, then I would, try to pop one of those guys in there, maybe at the end of that round. Or, I think you got CMC, in the 5th or 6th pick in our dynasty draft? Yeah. If something like that happens, you just, pull up that value on the running backs and feel good about getting, a elite pass catcher or a bruiser like Derrick Henry, one of those guys. So wouldn't hate seeing it, but I think you want to see the run first before you move up one of those guys.
Exactly.
Let's see. A couple of other question marks here at the end of the first round. We had Travis Kelce at pick 11 and Najee Harris at pick 12. Let's start with Najee Harris. That still seems a bit of a stretch for me, or a bit of a reach at the 12th pick. Having a good showing in preseason, but what do you think about that?
I just don't know how you can really justify it over one like Jonathan Taylor. Joe Mixon, I mean, that one he's, is he going to be healthy? You don't really know that. But Najee Harris at the tail end of the first round is just, we don't really know what he's going to be. That Steelers line is a whole different line from last year, and it's probably one of their biggest weaknesses on the whole team.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of question marks with the offensive line, and with the offensive line that they had last year that was, so experienced, had been around there for a while. They were 32 of 32 in the league. So I don't know what you expect, out of this new line here. Hopefully they can get something going, but I do still see that giving Najee Harris more value in PPR because, if they're not being able to get the ground game running, he should be catching a lot of passes. I know he had a big play last night down the sideline in their preseason game. But that's still just too high for me. Guys like Saquon going in the second, Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, those guys are falling in my opinion. I would have all 3 of those guys, Aaron Jones, Eckler, and Barkley, ahead of Harris, Chubb, and Zeke, who all win in the first round. I actually have them ahead of Derrick Henry still just because I believe all 3 of those guys are going to be very strong in PPR. Aaron Jones should still be catching a lot of passes. That's literally Austin Eckler's bag. That's what he does. And same thing goes for Saquon Barkley, who's still a bruiser up the middle and catches a lot of passes. So I would have those 3 prioritized ahead of Harris specifically. You could make the argument, in my opinion, for, Zeke at what is that, pick 10 or so, Nick Chubb at 10 or 8, Zeke Elliott at 8. I'm sorry, Nick Chubb at 10. You can make those arguments, and I don't hate those guys going there, but I would still, get one of those guys ahead of him. That's just way too high for Najee for me. I would prefer him. What do you think? End of the second, beginning of the third? Is that a little bit more appropriate?
Yeah, I think that's kind of where, more just looking at who goes in that area, that's kind of where I think he falls. I'm not crazy on Saquon this year. I just think that with the injury that he's coming from, and they've added some new weapons to that team, I don't know if I would necessarily put Barkley over Harris. I think his talent is there. I just don't know if his workload and game script and all that will necessarily be in his favor. But yeah, I mean, I like Austin Eckler a lot. He has a very pass catching out of the backfield. He's very, very good at it. He can run it between the tackles. So yeah, I'd probably put all but Saquon in front of Najee.
Okay, fair enough. Let's take a look at some of the receivers. Devontae Adams, the lone receiver going in the first round. He's my number 3 receiver, so it's not really that far off. I like him a lot, but I still think that the volume of Diggs and Hopkins is just too rich to turn down. And at pick, 3? At pick 6, I think that's a little bit too soon for a receiver. I would prefer to have Josh Allen over Devontae Adams for sure in Superflex. Probably even Kyler Murray. So if you say, like picks 10, 11, 12, I'm all in taking Hopkins or Diggs. Would still take both of those guys probably over Kelce and Harris. Kind of backing up to Kelsey there. Do you prefer Kelsey over those guys? Adams in the first? Who would you prioritize there?
I'm taking Devontae Adams over Travis Kelsey. I just had
Mhm.
last year when I had Devontae Adams, those touchdowns, they just do so much for you in fantasy where you're not necessarily dependent on getting like a Diggs where you're getting, 15 targets every single game for him, where
Mhm.
he can have 6 catches, maybe 75 yards, but he'll have 2 touchdowns. So I think I like Devontae Adams. I don't not like him. I think with that's a 6th pick. I would bounce that be a little bit later if you could catch him
Mhm.
at the tail end of round 1. And personally, in this format, I'm not spending a first round pick on Travis Kelsey. I move him down on my board just because I think in some of those in the tight end position, you can find some of those sleepers a little bit later in your draft.
Mhm. Oh yeah, I got a long list here for the back end of this draft. And tight end, I mean, it's a really deep position. I mean, obviously you want those high end guys, the Kelseys and the Kittles and the Wallers, but you want to find them at value. You don't want to reach on them. And for that draft stock, that real estate there at the end of the first round, if I'm drafting a pass catcher, like a pure receiver or tight end, I want somebody that has kind of that complete package, like Adams, like a Hopkins, like a Diggs, that has the athleticism to get yards after the catch, that can go up and beat a guy for a ball, just go up and beat him at the apex of the throw, right? Sidelines, corner of the end zone guys, not necessarily just like I love Tyreek Hill, don't get me wrong, he's getting drafted as the third receiver off the board here, but at the same time he doesn't have like the same size as those guys, right? And we saw him have a ton of touchdowns last year. The receiving touchdowns were great, but I'm expecting a little bit of regression there. So I actually have Tyreek Hill at number 4 at wide receiver. That would put him, towards the back end of the second round. But realistically, you just don't see that happening with Cheetah. Everyone sees that name pop up. As soon as he's at the top of the list, click, he's gone. So that's probably the right spot for him, is like at the end of the first round, very beginning of the second. But with Travis Kelsey, like, you love the volume. You love the touchdown opportunities. You love the situation in his offense. And they haven't really added anybody at receiver, right? They haven't added any other big weapons. You're not expecting Mecole Hardman's going to, be a target hog over Travis Kelsey any which game, right? But at the same time, he's not really a yards after catch guy. He can make a move or two, but he's not going to burn you down the sidelines. And obviously those extra yards are still going to be bountiful in fantasy. So for that draft stock, I think it's just a little bit too high. If you do hit on him and you hit on everybody else in your roster, then he's definitely a league winner, but you got to get everything else right. I won a championship in like 2015 with Rob Gronkowski as my first pick, and my second and third pick were Justin Forsett, little fantasy burner there, and Keenan Allen. And Keenan Allen got hurt that year. That was one of like his big losses. He missed like half the season. So I actually was able to recover from that, but it took like a lot of like random guys to pick up the slack, like Kamar Aiken. That's another head turner, right? Antonio Andrews, like, crazy names that, coming off our free agency that were just, able to win me week in and week out. So if you can win those little battles, you can outlast, drafting a tight end in the first spot. But, in a super flex league with the amount of depth that we have in this one, I think I agree with you. It's a little too rich. Let's end in this one at the end of the second round. Joe Mixon versus Jonathan Taylor there, the last running backs drafted in round 2. What do you think about Jonathan Taylor's value now with Quentin Nelson and Carson Wentz potentially being out for a little while? It sounds like they're getting healthier by the day. They might be ready for week 1. I don't think they're going to play in that period, but, looks like it's potential for an early return, weeks 3 or 4 probably at the latest.
Yeah, so I mean, personally, the Carson Wentz injury to me doesn't sway or move the needle any on Jonathan Taylor. I think
Mm-hmm.
he'll be good if it's Jacob Eason starting for them.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the Quentin Nelson, that's a huge loss for them. I do think he'll return early enough. I don't think it's going to ding Jonathan Taylor too much.
Right.
And to be honest, the rest of that Colts line is still very, very good. I get it.
Agreed.
Quentin Nelson's a huge piece of it. But it's a solid, although, left tackle, center, it doesn't matter. They're just solid. So honestly, for Jonathan Taylor, I don't move him much just because of those injuries.
Yeah, I've moved him a couple spots to like my running back 11 after both injuries, and I just felt like that was, it was practical. I had him at running back 9, and I just thought, a couple spots, not bad. I'll prioritize a few names ahead of him. One of them being Joe Mixon, who I moved up to number 9. Really like that situation there. I just feel like they're going to be playing from behind a lot. He should catch passes. I know we talk about it every year with Zach Taylor. Like, when is he going to feed Joe Mixon the ball? I think that's going to be this year. They have a lot of a lot of weapons at receiver in Chase, Higgins, and Boyd. I think they're going to be a very vertical offense that's consistently playing from behind. Joe Mixon is an every down back when healthy. So I think he's going to get a lot of snaps, a lot of touches this year. So I'm really high on him as well. I would probably move him up to probably like the middle of this round in round 2, probably to where you're seeing like, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott being drafted, especially if I've already drafted a quarterback. So no problem with either of those guys. Let's look at, let's see. We already did the Najee Harris, Kelsey. Running backs in rounds 3 through 6. If you're not targeting a premium running back in rounds 3 through 6 here, what guys do you really like for home run hitters that can essentially, move up to like that, premium RB1 territory?
I've been high on this guy for a while. I mean, last year he was kind of my diamond in the rough that I picked out in the preseason. That's Antonio Gibson. I really like what he could just do in that Washington offense, and I think you're going to see him in a similar role as what McCaffrey was when Rivera was in Carolina. He's he's a running back at Memphis, switched wide receiver, so he's got hands like that. Then when he came back to the league, running back. The only scare that I think kind of is there is the turf toe injury, and that could be a debilitating injury if it just continues to linger. But he's came out this offseason and said, he has no issues with it. So really, that's probably my main guy who I think would be a home run hitter. Looking at some of these other ones, I mean, like, does Dobbins get enough rushing attempts this year to be? I think he's got the talent. I've watched him play at Ohio State. He can run between the tackles, catch out of the backfield. He can really do it all. But I mean, your quarterback's taking 150 touches away. Then I'm sure Gus Edwards is probably taking another 150 touches away. So it's kind of like, does he get the rock enough?
Right. I think the volume is going to be steady enough for J.K. Dobbins. I think he does get more pass catching work this year. The team also wants to be more vertical with their offense. They want to pass more. They finished 32 of 32 in back-to-back seasons. So I think there's a little bit more opportunity there because, Gus Edwards isn't going to be that guy. Yeah, I do.
I mean, obviously they want to be better. You don't want to be last in the league, but I mean, they haven't done anything. Bateman's hurt now. I don't know how much that's going to really be able to be put into effect.
I think Bateman's going to be fine. Maybe he misses, like week 1 or something like that. He's already rehabbing very well per the team reports, et cetera. But honestly, they haven't been getting all their receivers healthy just yet. Like Marquise Brown started preseason, I think, with COVID, had a minor injury. Sammy Watkins was dealing with some stuff. He's fine now. I think they're going to make haste with whatever guys they have. And if those guys are hurt, like say there is an injury to Bateman, I think that would prop up JK's value in the passing game a little bit more to start the year. But for the 5th round, I think it's very good value in this mock. This drafter had Dalvin Cook in the 1st round, followed up with Diggs, Waller, Robert Woods, J.K. Dobbins. That's a pretty good start. That's not bad. I'd like to see another maybe running back mixed in there, maybe at the Darren Waller pick. Maybe if they had grabbed Antonio Gibson there, I feel like that would be pretty similar to some of the teams that I've been drafting. Have a few shares of Cook, Woods, Diggs. Don't have actually any of AG yet, but I'm getting on that as well. Another big guy that I was going off during preseason last year as well. I.e. my Matt Forte comp. I gave him a Matt Forte comp before he started snapping off. So I really don't hate J.K. Dobbins in the 5th. That was one of the names that I wrote down. Also Antonio Gibson. DeAndre Swift at the end of the 3rd round. That's great value for me. Think he's going to have a very steady role in Detroit. Obviously, the offense doesn't look great on paper, but he should have a lot of volume. People are saying Jamal Williams is going to work into that equation as well. But, I mean, your receivers are Quintez Cephas, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm not even considering, Tyrell Williams or Brashad Perriman. I think that those young guys are going to supplant them in the starting lineup, and you're going to be looking around going, well, TJ or Swift. I'm gonna definitely grab some shares of DeAndre Swift in that spot. That drafter took Najee Harris, Hopkins, Swift, and Mike Davis. I don't know about the Mike Davis pick, but you take what you can get. He actually picked Mike Davis over David Montgomery. That's a shame. Shame, sir.
And
Don't like that one.
looking at a couple of these here too, I feel like there was better guys on the board than Mike Davis.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They took Mike Davis over Montgomery, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'm not a big Miles Sanders guy, but I still think that's a reach. Josh Jacobs, same. What? That's nuts. That's wild. Josh Jacobs, at that 4th spot, that's not terrible. That drafter took Darrell Henderson the very next round. And that's not the worst combo, but that's what you're seeing you could potentially land with if you go, quarterback heavy. They went Mahomes and Rodgers. They're obviously going to get a lot of points from the quarterback position. And actually, if you look at it, I think they fouled up T. Higgins, Jerry Jeudy, Laviska, Michael Gallup. It's not bad. Also mixing in DK Metcalf in their 3rd round. So, but at the same time, Josh Jacobs, Darrell Henderson, not like premier guys. I would actually probably take Darrell Henderson right now over Jacobs just because you're going to see less competition for touches. And McVay has said as much, like Henderson has every capability of being their like every down back. So he was another name that I wrote in that range. So I had Gibson, Swift, Dobbins, and Henderson. I would probably fade Miles Sanders. Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the 4th round right now seems a little bit rich, given that he has a somewhat of an ankle injury, quote unquote. Doesn't sound serious. Could be not that big a deal. Andy Reid says it's not a high ankle sprain. We don't really have enough information right now, in my opinion. But with that information being out there, I would still say round 4 is a little too expensive. What do you think about guys like, Chris Carson or Travis Etienne or Kareem Hunt in the 5th round? A couple of those names seem more expensive. I guess Chris Carson seems fine, but Etienne and Hunt, I don't know. That's a stretch for me. What do you think?
I like Kareem Hunt. I actually have a share of him in our dynasty league. I just think in the 5th round to have a guy who's sitting behind Nick Chubb, who I think could really go for the rushing title this year. I think as long as he has the opportunity, he's an old school running back that just pounds the rock, and he's not necessarily the flashiest or anything like that, but he's so good. Kareem Hunt, I like him if an injury pops up, but no way am I going to spend a 5th round pick on him. Etienne, I mean, he probably gets some work out of that backfield, but James Robinson is still there, rushed for 1,000 yards last year. Unless they move him at any time, I'm not taking Etienne at all in any of my drafts this year.
Yeah, if I got to get him at really good value. And honestly, it's probably flipped. We'll get to James Robinson here in a bit because I have a note for him in the 8th round, but you're seeing him go in the 8th round and Travis Etienne in the 5th. Like, that's a big flip-flop as far as I'm concerned. I would rather have James Robinson in that space. I would feel comfortable drafting him in the 5th round because I still feel like he's going to have a very, very reliable role every single week in the red zone, just on 1st and 2nd down, short yardage situations. I think he's going to have a lot of opportunity still, and people are just rushing to the new pretty toy in Travis Etienne. Obviously, that connection with T-Law, that weighs a ton on people. They've already seen it. They've seen that it works at high levels, but this is the NFL. It's a whole new bag. I just don't see Etienne, living up to that draft stock. We have a question out of the chat here from Trey. Redraft half-point PPR, Chris Carson or Darrell Henderson. Also, do we like Henderson more than Montgomery? Half-point, I'm leaning Carson. What do you think, Steve?
I think I'm going to lean Henderson, honestly, just because Chris Carson, I've had him multiple years, and he's destined to get hurt every single year at some point or another. So, and like sometimes he just cannot punch it in the end zone, and it irritates you so much. And then you have Russell Wilson roll out play, and he'll scamper in or something. So, honestly, I think that I'm taking Henderson, I think, here.
Yeah, and that's fair. I don't believe I have them that far off of each other. So let's see. I have Henderson at 24, and actually, I have Carson higher. But this is a full point PPR, so maybe I should be swapping those around. I mean, those are my instincts when I put my list together. But if I'm looking at the board, it's half point. You're pulling it down. I'd probably go Carson. Henderson, I feel like the love is a little strong right now. You see the Matt Stafford coming over. Offense should be a little bit more vertical if you don't have a bruiser like Cam Akers there. So I feel like he'll have a little bit more value. But I still like Carson a lot. It mentions that Carson does have a tough schedule. I try not to focus in too much on the schedule, strength of schedule versus a position, because every single week that's going to change. Like one week you'll have one team in that top 5 of like, oh, you want to avoid that team, or you want to avoid that matchup. and then the very next week, they could take an injury or two, and they're out of that top 5. Maybe it's top 15 or top 10 still, but that is going to be a factor that constantly changes. Let's do a couple of rank 3s or rank 4s. We'll go with tight end. I'll throw 3 at you: Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, or Kyle Pitts, rank 3. And this one, Mark Andrews went in round 4, a little bit higher than where I've seen him drafted. TJ Hawkinson and Kyle Pitts both went in round 6.
So I'm debating between Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts. I actually have Andrews ranked a little bit higher than Pitts. But as we get closer to the season, and I was actually talking with a friend of mine, and I think he almost put Kyle Pitts above them with just what he can do. And aside from Calvin Ridley, he's going to be a main focus of that Falcons offense. So, I mean, 1,000 yards, I think, is very doable for him in his rookie year, just because of how depleted their offense is. So I'm going to go Pitts, Andrews, Hawkinson. What do you think?
It's Andrews, Hawkinson. Okay. Well, I still have Andrews ahead of Hawkinson. I go the way that it's not the way that it's drafted. I'm sorry, because Pitts went ahead of Hawkinson. So I go Andrews, Hawkinson, and Pitts. And for me, that's just because I like the offense in Baltimore the most. You're still seeing question marks in Detroit and in Atlanta. Atlanta obviously not having a strong run game. They're going to have some series definitely stalled for sure. Some drives stalled. Same thing in Detroit. I feel like they're going to have issues just getting down to the red zone. Whereas Baltimore, whether they're running a lot or they're passing more, whatever the offense is doing, they are still a high scoring team, and they're constantly in the red zone. So that's why I hold Mark Andrews a bit higher. Obviously, when you get down closer to the goal line, bigger, stronger target like Mark Andrews starts to have a little bit more appeal. And just in general, he's led his team in targets and catches the past 2 seasons or whatever, top 2. He's right there with Marquise Brown. So at different times, he has been leaned on by his offense. So I still hold him a little bit higher, but I see exactly what you're saying with Kyle Pitts. The team, or at least the offense, doesn't look great. He's potentially the second passing option right behind Calvin Ridley. Might as well consider him a wide receiver too. I just still see some of these other guys like Gage, mixing in. Zacchaeus kind of causing a headache for fantasy owners where they're stealing those like 4 to 5 looks here and there. What they're doing with them, that's going to be on them. But I still feel like there are going to be some targets that pull away some action from Kyle Pitts this year. And love TJ Hawkinson. I might even keep him in one league. I'm kind of debating it between him and Jerry Jeudy. Kind of like in the middle of the draft. And still love the opportunity when they get down to the red zone. He's going to be a guy that has a lot of appeal, but at the same time, he's not a guy that is really big for yards after the catch. He's not a high yards per reception guy. I think those numbers could climb this year, but with Jared Goff there, not really sure what we're going to get out of the ground game. There's still some question marks that leave me hanging. So I would put him in the middle of that pack and put Pitts at third. How about some of these receivers here? I've got to go over to the scroll here, scroll down a little bit. Let's look at receivers in round 7.
So,
I want you to rank.
Yeah, actually, I had one here real quick, touching on the back end of 6. So you got Ayuk, Deontay, Tyler Boyd, Corey Davis even. How do you think that stacks up?
What are the 4?
Ayuk, Deontay Johnson, Tyler Boyd, and Corey Davis.
This is a weird round because I didn't like what they did here. Juju went first, then Deontay, and then within 4 picks, Claypool went. Like, you're telling me all 3 Pittsburgh Steelers are going in round 6? I hate that, first off. So Deontay, I hold at the highest. I believe I have him at wide receiver. He's at 18. So I actually kind of have him in that company around ahead of him, where I would probably take him like right after Tyler Lockett. So I guess he's in the right spot. He's where he needs to be, I suppose. I'd probably take him a few picks ahead. And then who'd you say? You said Debo?
No, Tyler Boyd.
Ayuk went the round before. So, and then Tyler Boyd was in round 7 as well. So I guess I'll look at these guys ahead, like Robbie Anderson, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Galladay. Honestly, I like these names in round 7 more so. Like Tyler Boyd, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, even DJ Shark. I still like more than Claypool, than even Galladay. There's a lot of mouths to feed in that Giants offense. Has those injury opportunities, or I don't want to say he's injury prone, but it's been a factor for him in his past. Jamar Chase I like a lot, but he's not having a strong camp. I think it's kind of a coin flip between him and Tyler Boyd. We need to see obviously more of Joe Burrow. He's not playing any preseason, it looks like, so obviously that's a factor. But again, out of camp, there haven't been strong notes about him. He's been struggling a little bit more with the ones. But you see again there in that bunch with the Bengals receivers, Chase in round 6, T. Higgins right after him, and then 3 picks later, Tyler Boyd. So it's pretty much people kind of taking their stand, and I don't want to be first to any of those races. So I definitely like Deontay Johnson in the beginning of that round. I'd like Tyler Boyd to start the next round because you're getting the last of the Bengals receivers who has the most experience. Tyler Boyd, he's been around the block. I stay away from Corey Davis. Again, you're looking at like that tandem in Denver with Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, people just kind of taking their stabs. I like Jerry Jeudy a little bit more. He's looked very electric. Cortland Sutton, a lot to like about him. I just like the yards after catch more so with Jeudy, like that opportunity that he provides potentially for a Teddy Bridgewater or Drew Lock, who may need more of a safety blanket than someone burning down the sidelines like Cortland Sutton. Debo, I like where he's at too at the end of the 7th. I mean, honestly, I could see him going right where Ayuk went. It's really just people picking their poison. And I feel like this is kind of like a very gray area, like rounds 6 through 8, because look at how many receivers are going. We got, what is it, 4, 5, 8, another 9, 10, 14, 17, 21 receivers going in those 3 rounds. That's obviously the lion's share of the positions there. This is why you don't necessarily need to target, all these high-end guys. Like that's why you're seeing one wide receiver go in the first round in this mock here.
Mm-hmm.
I still think that you want to grab some pieces in that top 5 if you can. Obviously, if your draft stock allows it. If you see Adams, Hill, Hopkins, or Diggs go, you got to be running to Calvin Ridley. Because after him, I like guys like Keenan Allen, I like Allen Robinson and Terry McLaurin, but you're going to feel a lot more comfortable with any of those names listed ahead of them as your first wide receiver on your fantasy roster. Let's take a look at some deeper value here. Let's go for kind of like our big hitters in rounds. Let's say 8 through 14 to start, and I can drag that along a little bit more if I need to. So we'll say rounds 8 through 14. We'll start with quarterback. What big names are you targeting that you're getting a little bit of better value? We saw one team draft, Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers in rounds 1 and 2. It's kind of risky, kind of risky with that approach. What names are you really liking here at better value? We'll say mid-tier.
So first one I see that pops off right away, Matthew Stafford. I really think he could be a dark horse for an MVP this year. Just seeing with his arm strength, things like that, to see him paired up with Sean McVay and see what he can do offensively. I mean, it seems like it's a match made in heaven. So I think that's probably the one that stands out most. So what do you think on Deshaun Watson? You see here he's going in round 12. Are you taking a stab at him?
I have in Dynasty, but I would not in redraft, no. So I don't have it pulled up here. In our Dynasty that we did together, I have Kyler. Man, it's going to drive me nuts. I think it's Kyler and Stafford. I'll probably get it pulled up here. But I drafted Watson as one of my bench guys. So with Watson, I'd stay away from him in redraft unless he's like literally if you really over attack the quarterback position and he's like your 4th quarterback, I'm cool with it. But in redraft, unless he's the 4th guy, I'm going to just completely stay away.
Yeah, fair.
So it was Tannehill and Josh Allen. Sorry, Kyler Murray's on another one. And on that team, I also drafted Deshaun Watson, Dwayne Haskins, and Gardner Minshew. Oh, and I picked up Jacob Eason. So it's kind of a valuable position. That's also why my name is Disorderly Conduct. Oh, Jameis Winston also adds into that as well. So, so I had Josh Allen, Ryan Tannehill, Jameis Winston, Deshaun Watson, Dwayne Haskins. Maybe I'll rename my team the Bad Boys. I don't know. But, I mean, Winston obviously looks like he should have some playing time this year. Like, if I'm completely out on that, then, whatever, maybe I'll have to trade him away or something like that. But for redraft, no Watson. Dynasty, I'll take a shot. I'll take a stab. The other guys that I mentioned were Derek Carr, round 13, and Joe Burrow in round 10. I think that's great value for either of those guys. I still think that the Raiders are still going to have to be very vertical. Their defense is okay. It's not out of this world. They're going to be playing in a really tough division. So I see Derek Carr having to up the volume this year. And Joe Burrow, again, another team that's going to be playing from behind a lot. Super, super competitive division. I think he's going to have a lot of passing volume this year. Could be even top 5 as long as he stays healthy. And really, that's the only thing that would be concerning is the last year's injury. He's a guy that does like to extend the play with his legs. Hopefully, he takes a few more slides this year than last. But really, that's the only risk for me in round 10. I think that's gold. Obviously, you don't want him to be your first quarterback in Superflex going in round 10. I think you're also getting a little bit risky there. You need the balance. But as your second guy or third guy, I wouldn't hate that one bit. Not one bit. What do you think about running backs? Oh, go ahead.
I think you hit it right on the head with I got Burrow in our dynasty league just because I think they'll run spread. They got all those wide receivers, young wide receivers who are talented. And then, like you said, playing from behind, they're going to have to be slinging the ball a lot. And so I like the volume that's going to be there for him. So I'm all at that's one too that pops out to me, Joe Burrow.
Yeah, absolutely. For running backs, I had James Robinson in round 8, kind of circling back to him versus ETN. I just think that's great value for him. Very violent and brutal runner. This guy just knocks dudes over. Someone that can finish on the goal line. A guy that I still think can have 10 plus touchdowns this year. Absolutely love that value in round 8 or beyond. And again, like I said, I would gladly take him in round 5. I'd flip that and take ETN in the 8th round. But again, that's probably not going to be how your draft's going to line up. And then I took either Buffalo running backs in Moss or Singletary. Singletary is actually having a pretty strong preseason. Zach Moss went in round 10. Singletary went in round 12. I don't hate either guy as a deep running back spot on my roster. Maybe one of them would have to plug in a flex on a bye week, but you want to have enough running backs by round 10, I would say, to where every running back you draft after that is, a flex or a bench spot and keep it pretty simple there. So I take any of those guys in that space. How about you?
Out of Moss and Singletary, I'm taking Singletary. Like you said, he has been looking better in this preseason. I feel like I've just probably died on that horse one too many times where I think he's going to be good and then he just doesn't do anything. I like Javonte Williams in Denver. It seems like it's going to be by the end of the year. It'll probably be his job over Melvin Gordon. So I like that. And then Trey Sermon is another one that really pops out to me just because of him being on that 49ers team who run zone so well, and I just think he'll have opportunity. He does have a couple people in front of him. You got Mostert there. But I think in that offense, they'll get plenty of touches. For the past 2-3 years, they've ran with like 5 different no-name running backs, and they all have one good week, in fantasy. So I think he's got plenty of opportunity.
Yeah, I love Trey Sermon in that space. I didn't see what round he went. Probably a little bit later. I don't see it on the screen. But, yeah, I love Trey Sermon. Where I've been getting Mostert, I get Trey Sermon. I like grabbing both of those guys in redraft and dynasty alike. Sermon definitely holds more value in dynasty. I think he could very well be the future of the team. I think Mostert's going to be out next year. Also like Elijah Mitchell, who I have at the 15 through 21 section here. So I like that situation as well for all the reasons that you just listed. What about receiver? Who do you like 8 through 14? The mid-tier receivers.
8 through 14. Cole Beasley. I like just how much usage he gets in that slot. He's probably one of the arguably top 3, top 5 slot receivers in the whole NFL the past couple of years. So I like him. I'm also maybe I throw a dart on someone like Traquan Smith just because of how depleted that Saints offense is, and someone's going to have to catch the ball. And I think he, out of the ones that they'll have healthy, he's probably their best wide receiver. So I'm throwing some at him, maybe even a Gabriel Davis from the Bills as well. He kind of got slept on of the rookie wide receivers last year, I feel like, and I think he'll break out even more this year.
You're not concerned about COVID Cole?
I maybe if he can just put all the drama and everything to rest, it definitely help. But
right.
I mean, football player wise, he's still a dog.
No, absolutely. Lots to like about him and Gabriel Davis both. Excuse me. A couple that I had. Two that have been most consistent for me are Darnell Mooney in round 9 and Antonio Brown in round 8. Antonio Brown's value versus Mike Evans and Chris Godwin's is obviously much more discounted, getting him in rounds 8, 9, 10 plus. Still a believer in him in an offense that I still believe is going to have to pass a lot. And I just have to believe, again, that Evans and Godwin are going to draw the bulk of the attention from defenses, even their running backs. Even their tight ends. Rob Gronkowski is going to need to be able to get a little bit more attention. The man scored 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. You can't forget about him. So a lot of weapons in that offense. Really like grabbing AB wherever I can. But you don't want to reach, like, I think round 8 is a good starting point. But honestly, I would still like a round or two more value, like rounds 9 or 10. Darnell Mooney at 9 also seems a little rich. I think that if Dalton is going to be the starter, people will kind of backtrack him on a little bit, maybe pull him back around or a handful of picks behind what he should be drafted at. But man, with Justin Fields on the field with Darnell Mooney, it's going to be something special. So I really want all of Mooney this year for his value. I mean, he's a guy that I could easily see creep into wide receiver 2 territory. I think AB is pretty similar. He's going to be kind of at the back end of wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 territory. And then Devontae Parker and Rashad Bateman, who are guys that are both banged up right now. Parker was drafted in round 11, Bateman in round 13. I think you can get those guys at a little bit better value for their injury, quote unquote, news right now, or their lingering injuries, whatever it is, because come weeks 3 plus, I think that those guys are going to be really steady in fantasy and just carving out the roles on their team. Let's move down to tight end. I've got Tyler Higbee, Logan Thomas, Noah Fant, Mike Gesicki. I don't know if there was anyone else at tight end drafted in this position other than those guys. Any objections to those, or anyone in particular that you really like?
I got a few shares of Tyler Higbee. I like, obviously, with the addition to Stafford, I think he might have more use. The time he looked like he was kind of pushing to become one of the better tight ends in the league, and then he had a little bit of a regression, didn't get much usage. So I like that. In this draft, it looks like it went Higbee, Goddard, and then Gesicki. I think I moved Gesicki maybe even above all the other two. I think he's got a lot of potential. I'm always a firm believer in young quarterbacks like he has with Tua. They rely on their tight ends because it's their security blanket. It's their checkdowns. It's things like that. Right. So I'm actually probably highest on him, and I think off of how they played last year, he finished the season pretty well.
Oh, I absolutely love Mike Gesicki. The only concern that I have with him is right now to start the year, he should be a premium target on that team. But as we get into the middle and back end of the season, you're going to see more Jalen Waddle. We're going to see more Will Fuller. We're going to see more Devontae Parker. And I think that those receivers are going to kind of leapfrog him as far as production, touches, obviously not snaps, but even Preston Williams will probably come back into the equation here at some point, and he'll still a few touches. Hunter Long, the tight end that they drafted, he was dealing with an injury. I'm not sure if it's still considered serious or not, but right now to start the year, there's a lot more opportunity for Gesicki, and I kind of see that kind of fading. So I don't mind drafting him, but I just recommend to people and to viewers that you should be trying to kind of push him as a trade opportunity. Once you get into like weeks like 5 or 6 plus. Because I do see his role kind of diminishing as the season goes on. It's kind of an issue I got to deal with. I've got a couple of shares of him already. What do you think about Noah Fant? A lot of people are really high on him. He was drafted in this mock in round 8. Don't hate the value, but is that a situation that you trust without really knowing the quarterback? And also Fant himself is, kind of a lingering injury type of guy. He's been hurt on and off since coming into the league.
Yeah, I mean, fully healthy. He's like he's a gifted athlete. He's got good speed, catch the ball, all that. I'm not as worried about his quarterback situation just because it's 2 quarterbacks who, to me, just aren't very good in Bridgewater and Locke. So I think that he still probably gets enough usage, whichever one is at the helm. I'm not too crazy high on him. I'm looking at, Tanyan's kind of in that range. He's tenfold over where I think Noah Fant is. And then some of those guys that we mentioned, Higbee, Gesicki, all of them, I think I like. Even Dallas Goedert I like more than I think Noah Fant.
Yeah, I have one share of Dallas Goedert, and I'm not like excited about it at all. But I'm not a buyer of Jalen Hurts, so
It's
I took
tough
a random.
to get
Yeah, I took a random
any.
shot on Goddard, and then I took a random shot on Ertz. I was hoping Ertz would just get traded by now, but they just love him so damn much. They don't want to trade him for a 7th-round pick, apparently. I don't know. Wouldn't hate if either of those guys got cut. Well, not Goddard. Goddard won't get cut, but if they cut Ertz and he could just go sign with somebody. Really like Logan Thomas as well, who's also having a nice little preseason. Have one share of him, just one. All right, let's move into that 15 through 21 territory. We're talking the deep value. Let me get it pulled up here. 15 through 21. Yeah, 15 through 21. Quarterbacks that you like. Obviously, it's really thin pickings.
For this redraft, I mean, it's kind of tough. Mac Jones, I think eventually he'll kind of slide in there and take the job from Cam. He's looked amazing. I think he actually has the best passer grade, PFF passer grade in this preseason of any of the rookie quarterbacks. He just looks calm, cool. And I think that's the type of player that Bill Belichick wants. He wants that guy who he just does his job. He doesn't wow you with his arm strength or anything like that, like a Mahomes does, but he's accurate. He can move the ball 10 yards every single drive, and that's all you need to get it done. So that's probably I'm trying to see if there's any other ones. I mean, Tyrod Taylor, no. Teddy Bridgewater, no. I think Mac Jones is probably the one that stands out the most to me.
Yeah, I actually like Drew Lock. He's been actually having a pretty decent preseason so far. So I'll throw Drew Lock into that mix because again, this mix of guys, none of these guys, none of them should be your QB2. These guys should be your QB3, your bye week quarterbacks in Superflex, or even your 4th if you really attack the position heavily to start the draft or in the mid rounds of your draft. So I like Drew Lock. I think that's a decent one. Jimmy G, I've been banging the drum all preseason, so I got to stick with it. He's still going to be the week 1 starter. I think the schedule is really soft to start. They're going to get him going early, going to get him rolling. If he loses this job, I really don't expect it to be until like weeks 6 or 7 plus. Maybe it's just the EIU love, getting me those home cooking vibes. I don't know, but I'm still believing him. He's playing for his job next season. On a new team, most likely. So he's pretty much auditioning for the rest of the league. I think he's a pretty decent grab, again, as your 3rd quarterback, as your 4th quarterback, and a guy in an offense that he just really knows the playbook really well. Shanahan trusts him. He's declared him as the starter. And I still don't think anything that Trey Lance does in the preseason is going to supplant him as QB1 on the roster. I just don't see it. And then give me a deep flyer in Jared Gopher. Not the most sexy name this year in fantasy football, but at the same time, he's a starter. They traded for him. They like him enough to say, hey, like, you're our guy for now. He's still probably a bridge quarterback at the end of the day. Like, they're going to see what they get out of him. If he plays really well, they'll keep him around for another couple of years and then draft another guy, etc. So I still think that he's a decent grab. He went in round. It was really late. He went behind Cam Newton,
16.
Which I still think is he was the last. What was it? The last one? Yeah, the first pick of round 16. Cam Newton was selected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 picks ahead of him. That's irresponsible. Sorry, guys. I don't agree with that one. Taysom Hill was the next quarterback drafted behind Jared Goff, and then Jimmy Garoppolo, and then Drew Lock. So looks like people still prefer Goff over those guys, and I could see why. Like, he still has a big arm. He just needs to be told where to throw it. It's pretty simple. He needs very quick, very fast throws. Honestly, Jimmy kind of needs the same thing. He needs to get the ball out of his hand quickly and, essentially be whispered to. But again, for this real estate, I don't hate it. I think it's pretty decent actually for 22 rounds, getting your 3rd or your 4th quarterback at 16 or 17. I think that's pretty appropriate. All right, let's move on to some running backs here. There was one name in particular that was not drafted, and I'm pretty disappointed because there are some running backs here that aren't even on a team, like Duke Johnson and Le'Veon Bell. It's like, what the hell? Like, how are these guys getting drafted? First name I'll throw out there, Ramondre Stevenson, having a fantastic preseason. I think it's not just preseason. Like, I think he's doing absolutely enough to earn him, a role. I love Damian Harrison still, or Damian Harris, I should say, not Harrison, Harris. So I still love him. I think both of those guys are just going to be bruisers up the middle. They've got what now looks like 4 very competent running backs in Dame Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, James White, and Sony Michel. I guess, do you prefer any one of them over the others? Would you rather just wait for a Ramondre Stevenson in whatever round it is? I know it's like super late, round 16, or would you take a shot at Dame Harris in like the top 10 picks anywhere?
So personally, no. I that's a backfield I've stayed away from for years, just because there's so many. Not many backfields have 4 people that all get touches. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's always been a thing with New England. I've seen so much love for Damian Harris on Twitter and all this, and
Mm-hmm.
I really can't get behind it. I think, is he serviceable? Yeah. But like, is he going to be the guy that wins you your league? No, he's going to put up
Mm-hmm.
his average, and that's all it's going to kind of be to me. So I'm personally staying away from all of them. I will say Stevenson has had a really, really good preseason, and he's, every time you look, his name seems to be in some sort of headline. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe he can push ahead and think, and get that job all to himself.
Yeah, that'd be awesome to see. But at the end of the day, like you said, they're just going to get their touches. James White's going to touch the field. Sony Michel's going to touch the field. Man, Sony Michel had like a violent block on a guy the other night. It was atrocious. I mean, the Eagles really didn't show up for preseason. I don't know what we're expecting out of him week 1. Sorry, Jake. He's giving me some slack for all the Eagles hate, but the Eagles didn't look great the other night. Sony Michel just ran a guy over. It looked like a bus knocking somebody down. But yeah, all those guys are going to get their touches. They're going to get their snaps. They're going to get on the field. And yeah, I agree with you. After seeing Ramondre Stevenson do what he's done in preseason, it's definitely a backfield I would recommend staying away from. I was in on Damian Harris to start the year. I was assuming that Stevenson would, get those touches, but kind of more so like JJ Taylor touches, like 1 to 4, 1 to 5 a game, nothing crazy. Right now, he looks like a guy that should be getting 8 to 10 touches in that offense the way it's built. But I think they're also going to use all those running backs to protect the passing game. If Cam Newton is the starter, having all of those guys at your helm, that's going to be a great assistance to protect the quarterback and just set up the play action and stuff like that. I've seen a couple of nice, really big plays out of James White, even Sony Michel catching the ball out of the backfield. Carlos Hyde, Elijah Mitchell were the other names that I put down. I think Carlos Hyde is a nice little handcuff to James Robinson, because if Robinson were to get hurt, I don't think that means you're seeing Travis Etienne's role floored or his production floored. I just simply see Carlos Hyde and Etienne being a 1-2 tandem. So I really like grabbing a share of Carlos Hyde really late in drafts, especially if you draft James Robinson. And then kind of circling back to the 49ers, talking about running backs in that system, I think Elijah Mitchell is the next man up there. I feel like if Mostert gets hurt again, you're going to be seeing a lot of Elijah Mitchell, and we've just seen them run 2-3 running backs very heavily. I know JaMychal Hasty is there as well, and he's been having a really good preseason, but I think Elijah Mitchell, like your second to last pick, your last pick of your draft, something like that, I think that's a decent grab, especially, again, if you have added one of those other San Francisco running backs. I think just adding him to the bunch will be a nice little chess piece come the midway point of your season, or after they get an injury or two. Anyone that I missed?
I like Carlos Hyde. You did touch on him, but I like him just because of what, Urban Meyer loved him when he was at Ohio State. And I do think if James Robinson were something to happen to him, whether he be moved or whatever it is, I think Carlos Hyde's a little bit more of the bruiser you're going to see, like you said, on the goal line, whereas Etienne will be, more pass catching out of the backfield, kind of your gadget type running back.
Yeah,
The only other person I think I could make a case for here, I don't know if he's actually going to even do anything, but I like it. Matt Breida with Buffalo. I just think whenever someone in Buffalo, whenever they can get a running back, that team's going to be even better than what they are right now. I just think Matt Breida has he sucked last year in Miami, but
very bad taste in my mouth. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's one that I just always hold out hope for, and I'm probably going to be wrong on it.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate it, but man, he just has to have a role. He just has to do something. Like, they
Yeah.
have to give him something to do. Miami, they didn't. I was writing articles last summer like, "Oh, Jordan Howard, Matt Breida, pick your poison." Like, it
And I
is
don't think
terrible, man.
any of them really got much touches.
Well, they didn't, but Jordan Howard was getting those goal line touchdowns. It was absolutely annoying.
Yeah.
Let's move over to receiver. I have like a billion names written down, so I'm going to ask you to rank some of these. Rank me Sammy Watkins, Randall Cobb, Manny Sanders. Rank 3.
That's tough. That's tough. If I had to go, I'd go probably. Wait, so we got Manny Sanders, we
Randall
got
Cobb.
Randall Cobb, and Sammy Watkins. Okay.
Yep.
Jeez, that's really tough. I think maybe I go Sammy Watkins 1,
Mm-hmm.
Randall Cobb 2, and then Emmanuel Sanders, I think 3.
So let's see
But
here.
I could go interchangeable really between Manuel
Mhm.
Sanders and Randall Cobb. I just think Randall Cobb got that job for a reason. Aaron Rodgers is going to try and get him some extra touchdowns.
Absolutely. So in this one, Randall Cobb went round 16, Manny Sanders round 17, and Sammy Watkins round 19. Really like Randall Cobb. I did actually pick him up in a dynasty league that I probably have no business owning him, but I also have Manny Sanders in that league too. So I was just like, let's add to the veteran, wide receiver core, right? If one goes down, or I get another injury in my starters, and I got plenty of veteran experience in my flex, for a potential win now dynasty team. I would probably go Manny, Cobb, and Watkins. And I really think that Watkins is probably going to have the most reliable role of those three. It's just that, again, going back to Baltimore and not having that passing volume, like that high amount of volume, you're not getting that with Green Bay and Buffalo. Like, they pass a lot still, even with the Packers instituting or establishing more of a run game, right? But I am right there with you, though. Like, and that's the exact idea I had in my head, was like, well, if Aaron brought him on the team, then he's there for a reason. Fade MVS. Get his ass out of here. Well, I like Alan Lazard too, and I believe I even have Alan Lazard on that team, that very same roster. But that's the only thing for me with like putting Sanders first, is that like he's there to be the wide receiver too. John Brown is gone. This guy should be getting a lot of snaps. He should be getting a lot of touches. So I actually think Manny Sanders in round 17 is just fantastic value.
I don't necessarily have Emmanuel Sanders as a wide receiver too. I think Gabriel Davis could do that. And then you're fighting touches in the slot with Cole Beasley. So like I guess I'm just not. I just think one of those. I would always have been a huge Emmanuel Sanders fan. I think he's just a little past his prime, and so he's kind of on the downslope.
Oh, don't get me wrong. That Gronk team I was telling you about earlier that won a championship, Manny Sanders is on that ish. He was raking it in for me. But no, I mean, John Brown was getting more snaps than Gabe Davis last year. I assume he gets more touches. I assume he gets more snaps. But it seems like, when they go out and they get a veteran guy like that to pair up with a Stephon Diggs, I think it's for good reason. And again, like, this is a guy that I drafted. He's on my bench. It's not like I'm trying to start him week 1 by any means. But I just feel like that value for round 17 and that Bills offense, we just got done talking about Matt Breida potentially being an option for them at running back. There's a lot of upside for the passing game here in Buffalo, right? So I think he's a nice piece at the back end of your draft. I got a lot of names here though, so I'm going to go another 3. Give me rank 3: John Brown, Terrace Marshall, or KJ Hamler.
Terrace Marshall, probably my number 1. He's really he's the talk of their entire camp. Option, or snaps and usage might be a little difficult to come with, just because of DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson in front of him. John Brown, I don't know. I would say maybe John Brown 2, and then KJ Hamler 3. That's probably where they'd fall for me.
Yeah, I also own a few shares of John Brown, but I'm going to put him at the bottom of that. I'm going to go Marshall, Hamler, then Brown. I think Marshall is going to have the opportunity to have a really big year there. I actually think that they run more 3 wide receiver sets because they're not really established at tight end regardless. And man, with his size, you'd be surprised, but he could probably play a couple of snaps at tight end. Obviously for running receiving routes, but yeah, Marshall has been all the talk there in Carolina, looking great in preseason. I want to grab every bit of him I can. I was trying to see what round he went in this one. I know it was towards the back end. Round 18, at the very end of round 18. KJ Hamler went about 4 picks after him. KJ Hamler, another guy that is having a great preseason. That first, was it the first game with Drew Lock where they hooked up for like 1 billion yards and like a couple of throws, like 150 on 2 catches or something crazy like that, 105 on 2 catches, something wild. So I like his progression there. But I like guys like Tim Patrick as well. Like I think he's a real big gem at the end of your draft. He went with the first pick of the 22nd round in this one. So I like his value as well. But yeah, I would go Marshall, Hamler, and then Brown. Brown again in that Raiders offense. I think he's going to have some work, but there's going to be, definitely a lot of guys stealing targets. I don't even know if people realize Willie Snead is with the Raiders. Hunter Renfrow is going over the top of Jalen Ramsey in preseason work. Like we got all the Bryan Edwards love. You know what I mean? Like I like John Brown, but he's just kind of in a really big mix of guys. But I think he's an injury away from having a big uptick in production. Let me do one more here. Marquez Callaway, Kadarius Toney, or Nico Collins, rank 3.
So one more time.
Nico Collins,
Callaway.
Yep, Marquez Callaway, Nico Collins, Kadarius Toney.
So I probably go Callaway, Toney 2, and then I just think he's going to have targets just because who else is going to do it until Mike Thomas gets back. Yeah, so I do think I got him 1. Kadarius Toney, I think he's just shuffled down the depth chart right now with you got Sterling Shepard coming back from last year. You add Galladay. You got, Evan Ingram still there. I didn't really like that pick when the Giants did it. And then who we got last? Who am I missing?
Nico Collins.
Nico Collins would probably be my last one.
I think Nico Collins is going to have a really steady role. I'd probably put him at first, honestly, over Callaway, just because we could see Thomas come back at some point and have a bit of an impact. Honestly, I don't believe that's going to happen because of all of the, all the negativity going back and forth between the two parties right now. I don't know if we even see Michael Thomas again in a Saints uniform, but I like Nico Collins a lot. Again, Houston, bad team, going to be playing from behind a ton. Now, quarterback situation, it's pretty stinking bad. But, like we were just talking, Deshaun Watson earlier, maybe he somehow finds his way onto the field at some point this season. It's just going that bad. And they're like, you know what, get out there. And he just starts chucking it around to everybody. And Nico Collins is listed as number 2 on the depth chart right now. So pretty similar situation to Callaway. And I do agree. I put Toney at 3 just because he's buried on that depth chart. They've got a lot of weapons. Galladay, Shepard, still Darius Slayton. I know everybody wants to hate on Darius Slayton, but he's still there. He's still working for more production, working for more snaps. And he does have that extra experience in Joe Judge's offense, more so obviously than Toney does, especially because Toney was hurt to start the preseason. So, all right, let's go to just the last round here, Mr. Irrelevant. And I'm going to just one name, throw out one guy that you've either not seen listed or, someone that you would take with like that last stab in your draft here. And I'll try to get it completely dragged down so that we can see those names listed. But your Mr. Irrelevant candidate for your last pick overall. This is no defense, no kicker. So those aren't options. Young Koo isn't available.
I would have already taken him in the 10th round if he was available. I love some Young Koo. So the one I just picked him up. I got Quez Watkins. I think he probably beats out Reagor for that wide receiver 2 team there. We touched on a little bit earlier with Jalen Hurts. Yeah, does it leave me a little worried? But I've seen Watkins do things where he takes a screen pass and he just weaves in and out of defenders and scores a 75-yard touchdown. I think he's had, I believe, 2 touchdowns over 70 yards this preseason. So that's one I really like. And I've seen people, I see him here, Jake Funk with the Rams. Everyone's been really high on him. I don't necessarily get his, I mean, from a physical standpoint, he doesn't pop off the, off the page at you, but that's kind of like a James Robinson last year, who he's just a good running back. He knows when to hit the gaps, and so I think maybe he's one. I think I know who you're going to say. You're going to maybe say Elijah Mitchell here.
I already said him. I did not see this guy's name on this entire draft board, and it's just disrespectful, especially for the preseason that he's been having. You want to take a guess?
Yeah, give me a team.
Washington football team.
Is it Golden Gandy?
No, definitely.
He's had a really good preseason. I know, it's my guy, Jarrett Patterson, baby.
Jarrett Patterson, baby. Yeah, Mr. Undrafted running back. Probably going to be number 2 on the depth chart, right? I mean, we were talking about Antonio Gibson earlier with that turf toe. I may have to call my shot again this year with another big comp. Honestly, to me, Jarrett Patterson, he looks like a Frank Gore. He's a bruiser. Yeah. He's violent, and he can catch the ball. I nailed it on the head with Antonio Gibson and Matt Forte. Obviously, I'm still waiting to cash that check. I'm going to need AG to do some big stuff this season, but if you're drafting Antonio Gibson this year, you need to be taking a very, very strong look at Jarrett Patterson. Huge handcuff opportunity. If Antonio Gibson gets hurt, I from what I've seen on tape and in practice, he looks like a guy that can carry the load. At least be a first and second down guy, and then you bring in McKissick on third down. You know what I mean? Like, he looks very, very good. Going undrafted in this mock in 22 rounds, shameful. Just shameful. Adrian Peterson, Le'Veon Bell, Duke Johnson, Jake Funk.
Theoretic retired already this year, and he's even getting
that's
drafted.
Bad. Yeah, that's bad. That's not the greatest. Mock. Not helping anybody with mock drafts. Todd Gurley also there as well.
I will. I think Patterson should see McKissick out of the backfield. I think McKissick will still get his touches, especially to start the year. But Patterson's wowed. I'll never forget the game when he was at Buffalo in college last year, and he put up like 8 rushing touchdowns in one game. Like, he was a freak of nature, and he's an Energizer bunny that just keeps going, and he'll just run it right down your throat.
He wasn't even drafted. They signed him after, like, the last couple of picks were in for the draft. After Mr. Irrelevant, whatever, the last pick, like, he got just grabbed in free agency, like him and another handful of guys. I think like Puka Williams didn't get drafted. He was signed as a free agent as well. So yeah, I'm all about Jarrett Patterson this year. I think that you're obviously waiting for an injury, but this is a 22 team roster here. So 11 bench, you draft Gibson, you got to, it's better to grab, Patterson for a Gibson handcuff than a McKissick, because McKissick's never going to have the same role as Antonio Gibson. You know what I mean? So I feel like he's a very good handcuff. He's not somebody that's going to have standalone value, but for your last pick in your draft, like, I'd much rather have him than, Jalen Richard or DJ Dallas or Rex Burkhead, who's buried on that depth chart. Rex Burkhead, I don't even know if he'll make the roster. One of those guys I would assume would get cut. The receivers we're looking at, Anthony Miller, not great. Tim Patrick, who I mentioned earlier, I like that. I think that's a very good last round pick. Quez Watkins, who you mentioned, also a very good last round pick. Elijah Mitchell, who we also mentioned earlier, another a good last round pick. I think any of those guys you'd be happy to grab, with your last available slot to pick somebody up before, we're jumping into that waivers super sleeper type of conversation. So, yep, any of those would be solid for me. Pretty much all the time that we have for today. Is anything that you wanted to share before we head out? When are we going to get you back?
I think I'll be here next week.
All right, sweet. Well, there you go. That wasn't very long from now. So
yeah, you don't got to wait long. I know you guys are dying to see me.
Yeah, so we got we got 29th and the 5th left, and then we got football. Hey, let's go.
Let's go. Just count down the days.
Yeah, it's always so like so climatical, like, getting that first game on Thursday, and then I got to wait till Sunday. Like, it's so disappointing. Like, I'll be excited for the first game. Don't get me wrong. Dallas and Tampa Bay on Thursday Night Football on the 9th, but then I have to wait till Sunday. Really You've been watching Hard Knocks at all?
I have not checked it out. I had what's
It's
that?
kind of meh.
HBO.
Yeah, it's kind of meh.
Yeah,
The first
my
episode was
HBO
good.
Max ran out, so I haven't had it. But yeah, I'm not really too intrigued by it. Normally, you hear, whether it be podcasts I listen to, whatever it might be, you'll hear some buzz from it, and it just seems like there really has not been much buzz around this season.
Yeah.
Have you check
Yeah,
it out?
I watch every episode. I'm a fan, but towards the end of the episode, you start checking Twitter a little bit more. Maybe I start playing something on my phone, like play a game of chess or something like that on my phone. It's like, you kind of start to lose interest, like as they get more towards the preseason stuff. Like when they're in preseason games, like I see that sideline stuff all the time. Like there's a couple of nice little tidbits here and there, but other than the first episode, I've been kind of checked out.
Man,
So,
definitely.
but to start, it was cool. Like it was the Dak Prescott show to start, and then it just kind of faded into just mumble jumble stuff. But other than that, that's about it. But all right, cool. We're gonna head out. We'll see you guys next week. Steve will be here. Take care. Be good, and if you can't be good at it. Later.